Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 16 quarterback start or sit decisions for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into every single matchup from all the games on Saturday all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the quarterbacks in every single matchup. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at Notorious FNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 16 quarterback start or sit decisions. We begin with the Cleveland Browns at the Green Bay Packers. In this game for the Cleveland Browns, I am just so uninterested in Baker Mayfield if he gets to be the starting quarterback in this game. I mean, in terms of a regular NFL quarterback, he's just about average. He's not amazing. He's not completed utter dog shit. He's not going to lose games for the Cleveland Browns, but he's never really going to elevate himself to really put the team on his back. In terms of fantasy football, that kind of a quarterback is just so uninteresting, because it is very unlikely that Baker Mayfield throws 3+ touchdowns in any given game. It is very unlikely that Baker Mayfield rushes for 50+ yards in a game, which could heavily negate not throwing 3 passing touchdowns. The key game plan for the Cleveland Browns every single game is to run the football down the throat of the defense. Baker Mayfield, he does a nice job handing the ball off to Nick Chubb, to Kareem Hunt when he's healthy, but at the end of the day, that doesn't do shit for fantasy football. So for Baker Mayfield here up against the Packers, he'll probably have an alright NFL game to potentially put them in position to win this game up against the Packers, but in terms of fantasy football, he just really doesn't have any fantasy relevance. For the Green Bay Packers here, we got Mr. Discount Double Check Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is a quarterback I play every single game, and it is basically a no-brainer to play him. I understand that the Cleveland Browns aren't necessarily this push-over defense. They're not this super easy defense, but at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers can get it done up against the best defenses in the NFL, so I believe that he has the potential to be a top 5, maybe even the number 1 overall quarterback in fantasy football this week, so I love him up against the Cleveland Browns. Next up, we move to a matchup between the Indianapolis Colts at the Arizona Cardinals to close out the Saturday slate of games. We got Kyler Murray versus Carson Wentz. Now, I understand last week, Kyler Murray basically put you in a fucking coffin because the guy did absolutely nothing. The team got roundhouse kicked, metaphorically, by the Detroit Lions. That was an embarrassing game. Everyone and their mother expected the Arizona Cardinals to run train in that game. Everyone expected the Arizona Cardinals to show why they are one of the best teams in the NFC and why they are one of the best teams in the NFL. But at the end of the day, they fell so short of that because they got the shit beat out of them by the Detroit Lions. Kyler Murray had a bad game. The whole offense, besides Christian Kirk, had a really bad game. I think Kyler Murray bounces back here. I think there's going to be a very strong performance offensively from the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not saying that they're necessarily going to win this game, but I think Kyler looks a lot better. So Mr. 5'6", Mr. Short King himself, Kyler Murray, will be a start this week, and he does have the upside to be a top 5 guy. For Carson Wentz, if you are down astronomical at the quarterback position, there are definitely worse quarterbacks to start than Carson Wentz, but it's kind of similar to Baker Mayfield, where the key to success for the Indianapolis Colts, the way that they're going to win this game, I know, very complicated, is by running the ball a zillion fucking times with Jonathan Taylor. If you're able to give the ball to Jonathan Taylor and he can just pound out this defense, just wear them down, then in the third, the fourth quarter, he just runs for 1,000,000 yards because the defense just cannot stop him. So that's the game plan for the Colts, which doesn't really help out Carson Wentz, but at the same time, maybe passing-wise, he has a much better game, especially if Michael Pittman doesn't start throwing hands and doesn't get ejected and is able to play the whole game. So I think there's definitely worse quarterback starts than Carson Wentz, but I think with so many quarterbacks available in a lot of leagues, there's not really a reason to be starting Carson Wentz up against the Arizona Cardinals defense, I understand. But Nick, the Cardinals defense got absolutely eviscerated last week. I still think they're a pretty good defense, so I don't really want to be starting Carson Wentz in this scenario. Next up, we move to the first game on Sunday, the New York Football Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts versus Jake Fromm, maybe? I mean, based upon what I've read today, seems like Jake Fromm is going to be the starting quarterback for the New York Football Giants. I mean, What's the difference between him and Glennon? In my opinion, at least Jake Fromm has some upside. We know what Mike Glennon is. That guy fucking sucks. So at least it'll be fun to watch Jake Fromm. Don't think he's going to really have a fantasy relevant game though. In terms of Jalen Hurts, we get the good with Jalen Hurts and we get the bad. The guy is dangerous in the red zone, but you are kind of just know going into the game that this guy is going to make one or two plays that make virtually no fucking sense. Now, last week, he threw an interception off of Dallas Goedert's foot, which made zero sense, obviously. You can't even really hold him accountable for that, but he does make some stupid passes during the game. But he can make up for that by running for 70, 80, 90 yards and multiple touchdowns potentially in every single game. The Giants' defense is not really good at all, and the only worry about this is that the first time these two teams played, the Eagles were not the underdog, obviously. They were the favorite. Everyone thought they were going to win, and they didn't play very well in that game. This is an NFC East battle, which is prone to just have some crazy shit happen, which worries me slightly about Jalen Hurts. But at the end of the day, you just have to throw that narrative aside. Just think about the matchup itself. You got Jalen Hurts versus the Giants. Realistically, he could be a top 5 quarterback this week, so I love him in this matchup. He's riding hot after that Washington football team game on Tuesday Night Football, because who doesn't love Tuesday Night Football? Next up, we got the LA Rams at the Minnesota Vikings. In this game, I like both of the quarterbacks, Mr. Matthew Stafford, as well as Mr. You Like That, Kirk Cousins, quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. I honestly thought last week was going to be a smash matchup for Matthew Stafford. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks defense up against the pass, up against the run is just not very good, so I thought Stafford would really lay the pipe to that ass like he was a plumber. At the end of the day, he didn't really do that, but he is still one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I understand there was a patch in the season. Right at the beginning, the guy was on fire. Then he kind of cooled down for a couple of games, if you remember, when the Rams started losing, and then recently he's been playing a lot better up against the Vikings defense. That just really isn't all that good. I think Matthew Stafford will easily be able to get it done this week in terms of fantasy football. For Mr. Kirk Cousins, he's been pretty solid all year long. I think a lot of people severely discredit how good Kirk Cousins is. Now, again, I'm not saying he's like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, right? But what I'm saying is that I think a lot of people make fun of this guy for no fucking reason. Sure, it's funny that his primetime record absolutely sucks donkey cock, but at the end of the day, he is still a pretty solid quarterback here up against the Rams defense. Definitely not an ideal matchup, but he is a guy that could finish as a top 12 quarterback on the week. Next up, we move to the Buffalo Bills at the New England Deflatriots. In this game, I'm going to be playing Josh Allen. Now, I've talked about this in basically every single video this week, and that is that you want to take that game, the Bills versus the Patriots, when it was in Buffalo from a couple of weeks ago, and just dribble it around, fucking throw it into a garbage can. No need to even think about that game, because this game is going to be way different. Why is it going to be way different, Nick? These are the two same teams. Because there's not going to be a fucking, I don't even know what to describe, a tornado like it was in the Wizard of Goddamn Oz. I'm surprised the stadium didn't fly away. That is how crazy that game was. That game, I understand that it counts for the NFL. Sure, you can look at it, but it doesn't really tell you shit about what this game is going to be. If the Patriots just throw the ball 3 times again, maybe it'll be the exact same game, but I don't project that to happen. I think there's going to be a lot more passing because there isn't going to be 7,000 mile an hour winds going into the stadium. So Josh Allen here up against the Patriots. I understand he definitely shit the bed last time. I think he has a very solid performance this week up against the New England Patriots. For Mystic Mac Jones, quarterback of the New England Patriots, he has shown some flashes this year of being a very solid fantasy quarterback, but at the end of the day, this team and the way they use Mac Jones is very similar to Baker Mayfield that we discussed earlier on in the video, and that is that Mac Jones is in the position to basically just not fuck anything up. He's never really going to have multiple games where he really excels on a season, but he's always going to be there, handing the ball off, making the correct throws, and just not throwing interceptions, fumbling the ball, doing anything that could completely sell the team from winning a game. So Mac Jones here up against the Buffalo Bills. I think the Patriots could easily win this game. So at the end of the day, just don't start Mac Jones this game. Fire up Josh Allen again. These are not the best matchups because both of these defenses are very solid, but I think Josh Allen will still be able to get it done. Next up, we move to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers. Last week, Tom Brady took a heaping shit on the chest of the fantasy managers that played him. It was bad, and it wasn't even like somewhat bad. This was just catastrophic. And since everything went so south in that game, since everything went so bad up against the Saints for Tom Brady, I understand they won't have Godwin, they won't have Evans, but Antonio Brown's going to be there. They are going to lay the smackdown WWE style on the Carolina Panthers defense. So I love Tom Brady in this matchup. Cam Newton's very interesting because if it was just Cam Newton, you could talk yourself into starting him. But the fact is that Matt Rule continues to kind of talk about, Mono Man Sam Darnold might get into the game, and that just scares me. Now, Cam Newton could be a start-worthy quarterback, right? He just rushes in 2 touchdowns at the beginning of the game. Maybe everything goes south besides that, but he still has a solid fantasy day. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with a quarterback that could be fucking benched at any point in the game, I just don't want to be starting him. So Cam Newton is best left on the bench in fantasy, and maybe even in real life at this point in his career. Next up, we move to the Jacksonville Jaguars at the New York Jumbo Jets. But before we break down this elite matchup between Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, I would like to ask if you have ended up enjoying thus far, please make sure to hit that like button as well as hitting that subscribe button. It's free, helps me out a ton. I would greatly appreciate it. So we got the Jags at the Jets. Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson, the number 1 versus the number 2 pick. How exciting. Maybe you would have thought this would be an exciting game. I don't give a fuck, man. Trevor Lawrence, I might think about starting him because the Jets defense isn't very good, but at the same time, do you want your fantasy playoffs to hinge on Trevor fucking Lawrence, who has been shitty all year? But Nick, the reason why he's been so shit is because of Urban Meyer. And I agree, Urban Meyer was a fucking idiot. He's a dunce. But at the end of the day, I think you're up against the Jets. You don't want your fantasy playoffs hinging on Trevor Lawrence. Same thing goes with Zach Wilson. They both have solid matchups. This could easily be a high-scoring game, but this could also be a game that everyone chalks up to being so fun, the number 1 versus the number 2 overall pick, and the game ends up being completely terrible, low-scoring, and that's something I worry about. Plus, the Jaguars, once they get into the red zone, they're just going to hand the ball to James Robinson a million times, so the upside of Trevor Lawrence is certainly limited, and then Zach Wilson had some good plays against the Dolphins, had some really bad plays. I don't really have a read on Zach Wilson yet. I'm not going to call him a bust, obviously, though. There's only been however many games he's played this year because he was banged up at points in the season. Next up, we move to the Detroit Lions at the Atlanta Falcons. Now, it is far from a lock that Jared Goff is going to be good to go in this game. If he does not play, then it is going to be Tim Boyle. If Tim Boyle starts, then I'm not playing Tim Boyle. But if Jared Goff plays, who has actually looked solid. Now, do I think that Jared Goff is going to retain the job as the Lions quarterback next year? Probably not. But he hasn't been completely terrible. He's actually played pretty solid over the last couple of games. Definitely played really well up against the Cardinals last week. So I'm fine starting Goff up against the Falcons if he plays. If not, again, Tim Boyle, he could ride the bench. Matty, ice, baby. Dun, 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 dun. If there was ever a game for him to bounce back, it would be this week, right? The Detroit Lions defense is not very good. But at the same time, Matt Ryan has been so abysmally bad. Absolutely fucking atrocious. You can sniff through your screen and smell how bad Matt Ryan has been. It's terrible. It is so bad. What a fall from grace. Is it even all his fault? Probably not. But he's one of those guys that is a very streaky quarterback where if he's on fire, then he's going to play amazing. But if he starts slowing down, he starts not playing well, then it's just like a pattern of shit for like the next couple of weeks. And that's the train we've been on. Maybe he turns it around up against the Lions, but I'm not going to project that. So I'm going to go ahead and sit Mr. Matt Ryan in this game. And if Goff plays, I am willing to play him. Next up, we move to a matchup between the LA Chargers at the Houston Texans. Davis Money Mills has actually been playing pretty solid. I think Davis Mills actually does kind of earn the right to be the number 1 quarterback of the Houston Texans next year. And as long as everything isn't a absolute fucking disaster there, then maybe Davis Mills could actually play well. Now, the thing is, you're up against the Chargers. The Chargers don't have the most amazing defense on earth, but if Brandon Cooks doesn't play, then the upside of Davis Mills basically falls off the edge of the earth, and the upside of Davis Mills isn't even that high anyways. I think he's a fine quarterback, but for fantasy, I'm not going to start him against the Chargers. Justin Herbert, the pervert here, up against the Houston Texans. This is an ultimate wet dream matchup. I'm sure Justin Herbert has soiled his sheets multiple times this week, just thinking about this matchup where he could go to Pound Town up against the Houston Texans in Houston. This is just a amazing matchup, like I've stated 50 times, so you already knew that, though. Justin Herbert, the pervert, up against the Texans. Love him this week. Could be a top 5, maybe even the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football. Next up, we move to the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, while I was recording today's video, it came out that Huntley is ill. Motherfucker, I'm ill, not sick. Shout out Lil Wayne. So he doesn't have COVID, but he has a illness. Hopefully he's okay. Lamar hasn't been practicing. Everything I've read points to Lamar not playing. So if Huntley plays, I have to play him. I mean, this guy is on fucking fire. This guy is playing amazing. Nick, isn't Huntley better than Lamar Jackson? Which is something that I've seen on the internet. No, I don't think Huntley's better than Lamar Jackson, but he's performing at a very high rate. Maybe Huntley will be the starting quarterback on some other team. I mean, he is actually pretty solid next season, but I do like him here up against the Bengals if he plays. He has similar rushing upside to Lamar Jackson, and might be a better passer than Lamar Jackson. So, very interesting here up against the Cincinnati Bengals in a division rivalry game. I like Tyler Huntley. I'm in the pocket like Burrow. Joe Burrow, quarterback of the Bengals, has been pretty solid all season long. Hasn't really been the most consistent with just dumpstering defenses, but has been pretty solid here up against the Ravens. I think he could be a top 14 quarterback, not a guy that I'm going to be overwhelmingly excited to start, but a quarterback that I'm definitely willing to start on the week. If Huntley and Burrow play, I'd probably rank Huntley over Joe Burrow. Next up, we move to the Chicago Bears at the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the good word out of Chicago is that Justin Fields is banged up and the Dalton ain't gonna play, and maybe it's gonna be 9-inch Nicholas Foles. Big Dick Nick. Now, if Justin Fields plays, chef's kiss. I love this matchup up against Seattle. I understand that Matt Stafford shit the bed last week up against them, but I think that Justin Fields will perform well if he plays. If 9-inch Nicholas Foles is the starting quarterback, then I love Nick Foles. I think he's a fun quarterback to watch because it always seems like the team just rallies around him, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to start Nick Foles in fantasy football in the fantasy playoffs, even though the matchup is solid. Then Russell Wilson up against the Bears. I understand he hasn't been amazing after that finger injury, but he's been kind of catching a little bit more spark, has looked a little bit better, and with the return of Tyler Lockett, I feel like that is just the focal piece of this offense. I understand DK Metcalf should be, but for some reason he's not when Lockett is there. Wilson does look a lot better, so Wilson should be back on fire, not necessarily on fire, but back as a start-worthy quarterback this week with Tyler Lockett returning. Next up, we move to the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Kansas City Chiefs. In this game, I'm going to be playing Patrick Mahomes. What a fucking shocker. Now, I understand that Patrick Mahomes hasn't been the best quarterback this season. He has been far from it. At the beginning of the year, he struggled really hard. So, I'm going to play Patrick Mahomes. You just have to fucking play him up against the Steelers defense. I like him a decent amount. It just came out. I just got the note on my phone that, so you can just go back a couple of seconds for the game we were just talking about. Nick Foles will be the starter. Fields will be the backup. Don't play 9-inch Nicholas Foles. Big Ben Roethlisberger has looked pretty good recently, ran in a touchdown last week, but at the end of the day, I'm not starting Big Ben. I just can't do it. I mean, he hasn't been shit like he's been at points in the season, but he's not great. The upside there, I just don't really see him doing amazingly up against the Chiefs defense that's looked a lot better recently, so I'd leave Big Ben on the bench. Next up, we move to a matchup between the Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to see Horsecock Drew Lock versus the Raiders here. And I think Drew Lock's a very fun quarterback to watch, but that does not necessarily correlate to fantasy football success. He's one of those guys, if this game starts off well for Lock, he might be a top 10 quarterback. But if this game looks bad early on, then Lock is going to struggle immensely, and for that reason, I don't feel comfortable playing him. Derek Carr was pretty solid at the beginning of the season. There was a lot of spark about, oh, maybe Derek Carr's going to win the MVP, Nick. Oh, boy. And then, obviously, not even in the race now. He was like, it's like if I was to race Usain Bolt, right? I just runs right past you. That's basically what happened to every player running past Derek Carr. Just very uninteresting. This game fucking stinks. Let's be honest here. The Broncos defense is good, so Derek Carr probably won't have all that great of a game. Hunter Renfrow, though, will be fine, but this game in terms of quarterbacks, just snoozer. Real fucking snoozer. Next up, we got the Washington football team at the Dallas Cowboys. This is just another game where I could not give less of a shit to watch this on Sunday Night Football. I don't know who schedules this. I got really angry in the video yesterday, so we're not going to continue to hammer in on that. But at the end of the day, I don't like this game at all. Dak Prescott versus Taylor Heinicke. Who cares, man? Dak Prescott has been fucking putrid. I'm going to tell you to play him, but if you have any other option that I told you to start, you probably want to start him over Dak Prescott. Now, the thing with Dak Prescott, and the reason why I keep listing him after a start, after he continues to week after week pound your fantasy team directly in the ass without the use of lubrication, is because you know that inside of Dak Prescott, Eventually, he is going to be on court. Eventually, he's going to start popping off again. The question is, when is that coming, Dakota Prescott? When is that coming? Right now, I have no idea. But eventually, it's going to pop out. He's going to have a great game. So in some scenarios, I would start Dak, but I don't feel very comfortable doing it. Taylor Heinicke up against the Cowboys defense. This just reeks of a recipe of disaster for Taylor Heinicke. He struggled mightily against them a couple of weeks ago. So Heinicke will sit on the bench. Final game here, Monday Night Football between the Miami Dolphins at the the New Orleans Saints. Tua Tagovailoa versus not Taysom Hill, not Trevor Siemian, Ian Book. In reality, this probably would have been a very fun game. Both of these teams, this game heavily hinges on their playoff implications. Obviously, the Dolphins really can't lose from here on out. The Saints kind of in a very similar scenario. But now it's Ian Book. Maybe he plays well, right? We've never seen him play in the NFL, so maybe he has a solid game, but I wouldn't bet on that. So I'm going to sit Ian Book. Tua Tugs. Saints defense is a rocky roller coaster. Some games, they are on top of the world. They look like the best defense in the NFL. The next week, they are sleeping. They're doing jack shit. And then magically out of nowhere, they're amazing again, then they're shit. It is so confusing. It is so very confusing. They might easily eviscerate Tua Tagovailoa in this game, or maybe Tua Tagovailoa eviscerates them and he plays really well. So it's really up in the air for Tua because of the defensive matchup. I understand he didn't play great up against the Jets last week, made some stupid fucking plays like that interception. His second interception was a bonehead play. At the end of the day, though, he bounced back. They won the game. Tua up against the Saints. I'm going to play him, but not very excited about it. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that like button as well as that subscribe button down below. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, goodbye.